All right. Well, why don't we get started? Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Berezin from MS Dynamics World, and I'd like to thank you all for joining today's session, E-commerce Success with Dynamics NAV and Business Central. The event's going to be presented by Tori Trebo from Nomad eCommerce and Tony Wynn from Terry Bear Urns and Memorials. So before we get started, I'd like to note that if you have any questions, you can feel free to submit them anytime in the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. Tori and Tony will be sure to answer all of them at the end of the event. So I'm going to now turn it over to our first presenter, Tori Trebo. Take it away, Tori.
Good afternoon. I'd like to introduce myself. As Adam stated, my name is Tori Trebo. I'm president of Sniperdyne. We are developers of Nomad eCommerce. I would also like to thank everybody for joining today, and especially thanking Tony Wynn, Terry Bear. Tony is director of IT at Terry Bear, and Tony and I have been working together for probably about 6-7 years now on multiple projects. So thanks, Tony, for joining. Tony, go ahead and I'll let you kind of give a little bit of an overview too of what you'll be referring to today on your success with Nomad.
Hi everybody, again, as I said, my name is Tony Wynn, and Tori says that we've been working together for 6 or 7 years. It feels like a heck of a lot longer, but we've had a lot of fun. No, I'm just excited that you're going to be introducing people to what the Nomad connector can do and what Nomad can do. I just want to let people know that I'll try to close the loop and answer as many questions from a user point of view, from a ROI point of view of our business, and just kind of how we're able to utilize the software and connect multiple facets of our business, multiple facets of our software, and how we're able to leverage it to utilize a better operational flow. So I'll be excited to talk with everyone.
Thanks, Tony. So before I cover real quick a little bit overview of what we're covering today, there will be a poll question. If everybody would be nice enough to answer that poll question, that would be great. To start, we will be going through a walkthrough of some sites and functionality. We have limited time today, and I don't want to extend this for everybody's lunch, etc. So we'll be probably trying to speak for about 30 minutes, maybe giving an overview of questions and answers as well for 10 or 15 minutes. I do want to stress that there are lots of things that the application can do in regards to multiple companies' needs. So please reach out to us after the fact, and we'll do a one-on-one. So after the brief walkthrough, I do want to make sure I understand the reason. I was president of a manufacturing company in 2001, and the main reason why this was even built was I was on the same side of the desk as you guys, and needed to provide self-service to the customers from a 24/7 perspective, and answering those questions that a lot of our customers have in regards to status of orders, what's the availability of this inventory, what's my tracking number on this specific order. So that's the real reason, and that data all comes from obviously Dynamics, and let's share it. The additional data that obviously is needed, which I think everybody forgets about. When you put up a website, you've got this great data in regards to inventory and customers and orders and status of those orders. But what about when you take the customer service rep or the salesperson out of the picture, right? So now you just have nobody to answer questions. So you got to make sure that the marketing and the content around that inventory is there for that self-service perspective for the application. In addition, after the walkthrough and explain the product for everybody that's new to Nomad, obviously Tony with Terry Bear will be providing a little bit about the company of Terry Bear, what were their problems and challenges early on in regards before Nomad, and why did they choose Nomad over other solutions, and the outcome now that they've been live for almost a year now, the outcome and how things are going. So what is Nomad? Kind of explained. I like to say really, it's a customer, it's a CMS, a content management solution, as well as a customer portal. Again, it was built off the need of self-service to your customers, and not just your customers, but your sales resources as well, and specifically for manufacturers and distributors. In my mind, there are a few software companies that have taken the standardized approach to building a solution that's integrated, so it's the connector as well as the content management solution managing the website. And we feel that control specifically for B2B it was necessary in regards to controlling the connection and controlling the data specifically for the needs of business to business, and which is more distributors and manufacturers. So it goes without saying that you need data to build a website. So you need the ERP data, the marketing data, as I explained. Distributors and manufacturers have a very unique need in regards to how to supply that data to their customer and the demand of that. The inventory availability, if there's any safety stock, how much, when can you guys provide this lead time, the complex pricing that goes way beyond, a business to consumer website, order status, when is this shipping, what's my tracking number, and of course, order creation. But I think that is the big thing that everybody always says is, oh, I just need to stick an order in for my website because it takes too long. And they forget that in my mind, that's the least part of it, right? The most amount of time is all those additional questions and that customer service aspect of the site. And that's what we focus on. In addition to usability and design, every company that we work with has a different look and feel because they have a simple, they have a branding. They need to keep that branding, right? So let's make sure, in addition, that there's a simple user interface for that customer, knowing that the customer service representative is taken out of the picture. We also need to make sure that when building this application that the marketing resource who's managing this marketing data needs a simple way to create that content. We want them to not even know what ERP stands for. We want them to not even maybe having even to look at dynamics, right? We want them to be able to manage the content, which is what they were hired to do, and get in there and manage the data on the marketing side. So to start, I'm going to show an overview of some different sites. This is JR Merit Controls. You'll see that when I'm showing these different products or different sites that there's completely different corporate branding across the sites. Most of the clients that come to us already have a website. It is 2019, so most companies do have a site, so they want to keep that branding. They might be working with an ad agency. Somebody has built a site. They just redid their logo. They'll say, I want a site that looks identical to this or similar to this, but I want my inventory, I want the functionality behind the scenes to be connected to Dynamics. When we browse through the site from this marketing data that I'm talking about, you got your navigation, you got your categories. We have what we call tags, which is just essentially an attribute. Let's take additional data and attributes that you're going to need, and let's make this filter to allow the customer to quickly filter to what they're looking for. We can take that same tag data on Velocity, and we can, and under specifications, we can show that data. So not only are we filtering it, let's show it on the site in regards to, in this case, PSI style. It can be anything that you need to, as many of them as you need to. Porticool, completely different look and feel. Again, this was a shopping site from a B2B perspective that was an additional site. So they already had a porticool.com. Let's build a site that looks seamless when somebody clicks from that site to this site. Let's be able to control the navigation in the search functionality. I want what we call search suggestions. So when somebody's typing in a Dynamics item number from your inventory or any sort of keywords, let's start suggesting items that they're looking for. So when they click on that, it'll take them directly to a product page, as in this instance. When I log in, which I'll be getting into this a little bit more, but when you log in, there's different ways, and this is very important from a B2B, business to business perspective, is how do I want to control the price? how do I want to control who's logging in, who's allowed to see a price, and if they are logged in, making sure it's their price that they're seeing. So price is something big that we can extend upon on how you want to handle that. So if I'm logged in, I'm seeing this specifically for $122.99. Adding it to the cart, you'll see on the bottom, related products. We like to handle that with automation. I can tell you firsthand experience when you're managing a website that the more data and the more you have to manage, it's so hard to keep up with. So let's try to automate things as much as we can. So what we've done is with this automation of related products, we've created sets. So 2 of the 3 sets are actually automated. So let's turn on customers also purchase. So it's going to actually do algorithms and look and see these items were purchased with this, most frequently purchased with this item. Let's display it. These items suggested, these are like tags, let's say color. Well, let's show other items that are red because this item is red. And let's specifically show some related products. So those are all different options that we have the ability that are just completely out of the box. When I get to a cart, I want to make sure that I can easily see and add products in addition. So, again, from a B2B perspective, your customer salespeople might know your item numbers. They don't have to browse. They just want to get in and out. So let's make a quick way for them to enter item numbers and build an order. And specifically multiple items. I can copy paste from, let's say, a purchase order, a CSV file, and paste all these items in and quantities and produce a quick order. From a consumer perspective, and just so everybody knows, that we build consumer sites as well. I know I've talked a lot about B2B, and we can, in this case, me, a company, has B2B and B2C sites with us. So if I'm clicking over to the B2C site, which obviously everything is mobile friendly, so I think now day and age that everybody takes that for granted, but I just want to make sure that you understand everything is fluid, which I like to call fluid, responsive to the screen size. So as a site is loading, based upon the screen size, it's going to automatically respond to that size. So one site with that fluid responsiveness. Going to a wholesale site, which is a secondary site that Mia has with us, I'm able to see and drill in. Well, now you can notice that I don't see a price and I'm not allowed to buy it. So I'm not logged in currently. So that's one of our options that I'm wanting to put a wholesale site up. I want to display my catalog. And why would I want to do that? Because of search engine optimization. I don't think there's any more rich content to provide your catalog, but obviously from a wholesale and distribution perspective, you don't want to show the price or the ability to buy. There's a quick setting that says, show my products, but let's just not allow me them to see the price or buy unless logged in. This setting is literally a setting in the background that says, when you want your product price visible and not signed in, after sign in, purchasability after, when signed in and after signing in. We also control who can log in. So we know that the price and the ability to purchase is when to sign in. Well, how do we control who can sign in and who can't? So how we've done that is what we call an authorization code. That authorization is allowing me to quickly go in and authorize who I want to register for the site. Every time there's a Dynamics customer created, there is an actual authorization code that's given. You're handing that off to that company, and then they can allow people to register. Excelta, their main objective was a quick lookup. As you know, that we do a lot of part sites. This case, if there was a lot of products that were very similar. So when we have multiple items, more of a variation, we show a grid. You can easily see by these tags how to just separate the different variations of these items. And I can also see the stock, in stock and out of stock, those notifications. We call them stock messaging, in and out of stock messaging, because it can be very catered to how you want to message that stock. Even though we're pulling what's available in Dynamics, you can easily customize the messaging around that. In stock, how many, out of stock. You could even go into depth to say if it's out of stock, let's pull it from a purchase order, the promise date. Let's pull the manufacturing date and some lead times to get the available to promise and actually put it into the out-of-stock messaging. Another example of finding products. I think we do vehicle sites really well because they're kind of unique in regards to the make, model, year, and doing a search around different parts. And it's not just vehicle, the industry that we've used this search for. It's other. So I can go down and look for, let's say, a specific make, model, year, and it will search the whole entire site for parts that are similar to that specific criteria. We can also do a refine search. Okay, so there's another example of a full search, text search, feature set search, tagging, filtering, category navigation, all ways to find products easily without that customer service representative. The checkout for wholesale, I'm able to see the fulfillment lead times. I'm able to see any items are specifically back ordered, all coming from NAV, as well as estimated shipping and tax. When I get to the checkout, which you'll notice is a one-page checkout. Right? So I've got my address information that's already pre-populated if they're an existing customer. First time they are creating an account, it's the only time they would have to create it. And again, if it's there, we're pulling it from Dynamics for an existing customer. I can see shipping estimates, UPS, FedEx, USPS, all that is automatically in Nomad developed to those carriers for live rates. I can also have an option to ship to the recipient's account number. Again, more of a B2B feature. I have a shipping number, ship collect, freight collect, just put my account number in, as well as you'll see purchase order, notes, instructions, specific custom notes, all easily provided on the checkout. One of the other is terms. Let's look at the customer's default terms in Dynamics to know when they go to the checkout how and what terms are set up for that account. So in this example, it's defaulted to net 30. So we're going to automatically assign that company to a net 30 as an option. If you change that in Dynamics to pro forma, COD, well, next time they go to the checkout, it's going to change to the COD or pro forma option. Enter an item or enter the cart in the order, get a notification. We will also send an email notification out to the customers within minutes. This order would then be synced into your Dynamics system. A big part is notifications, as I stated earlier. We need to keep the customer up to date without you having to manually import and export this data from Dynamics. Let's make sure when an order is shipped, an order is entered in Dynamics outside of the website, that they can still see it. It's one set of data. This simple screen allows your customers to see all the orders from the site and orders entered into Dynamics with notifications. Once I drill in, I can see a thread. We like to call it more of a threaded notification. Order, notice, invoices, another notice, and you can modify based upon trigger points from Dynamics how you want and when you want the customer to be notified. In this case, there's tracking numbers as well. I can drill into those threads to see the detail and do any sort of print friendly as well. Once the order is submitted and when I go in to drill into the detail, I can also reorder this with one click. I want to click on the order. In this case, it's just one item. There could be hundreds of items on this order and would put all hundreds of items into a new cart for a reorder capability from order history. These are just a quick collage. It's just some of the names from Illinois Toolworks, Smotics, Jeremera they showed of names that trust in Nomad. We're very, as you can see and I've said, our whole life is around manufacturing, distribution, and self-serving from a e-commerce portal. And at this point, I know I'm at right around 27, 28 minutes, so I want to push this over to Tony. And this is the home screen and home page of the site that Nomad and Terry Bear is running, called Memory of a Lifetime. And again, what Tony's going to be covering is what problem that we solved with Terry Bear, his unique challenges that he came to us with in our team, how Nomad helped Terry Bear reach those goals and solve those problems, and how things have been working and improving and have improved since he's been working with the application of Nomad. Tony, I'll let you kind of take it from here.
All right. Well, thanks, Tori. We just want to talk about our company a little bit and how we were able to utilize the software, and hopefully fill in any of the gaps that questions you may have. But who we are is we're the leading source for beautiful handcrafted urns and memorials. We have a joke around here. We like to put the fun in funeral. I know it's a little bit inappropriate in its own way, but at the end of the day, we've been in business since 1983, and we supply to distributors, some funeral homes, and pet crematories and veterinarians. So we've been in the industry for a long time, over 30 years, and we're known for our quality and our value. So it was really important that we find a way to reach out to the next, as we continue to evolve to the next generation, and find out how do we get our products out to more people to see. So that was kind of how the original conversation started with Nomad e-commerce. So some of the problems are, and still are today, is like everybody else, how do we get traction? How do we get out in front of our customers? And then how do we streamline our process? We're, we're SMB, and we're not a company that has hundreds and hundreds of employees. So we have to be sure and be smart about it and leverage our technology. So on top of everyone else, I think a lot of businesses, we say the same things, right? We say, well, we're really different, we're really unique, and we have our own sets of things that make us very different, or that's how we're doing them the same way because it's how we've been doing them, and we're a little bit different, so we don't fit in any out-of-the-box solutions. So the first thing we did was we identified that we have some problems, and then we had a conversation with Tori and his team of how we're going to solve them. So we have a complex order entry. I'm sorry, can you go back, Tori? We had a little bit of a complex order entry issue because we are selling to our distributors who then selling to our funeral homes. So you have multi-layered customers. And on top of that, we also provide a proofing or engraving on urns and memorials. And we're on a tight timeline because usually when we're getting an order, there's either some sort of memorial or burial happening. So we don't get the luxury of having a 2-week lead time. We usually get a very small window to get our orders out. So when you talk about order experience, you're relying, again, what we all fear is manual entry. I think all of us in the operations will say that it's horrifying to think about, like our sales reps, other people entering orders. You can imagine in some places where when you're entering an order incorrectly, you might get 2 pieces and a really bad experience for the customer. If we spell something wrong or we don't get the piece sent out, we just ruined we ruined a really tough time in a family's grieving process. So because we hadn't streamlined any of our processes, we had a lot of discussion around how we make this better. And then, when you're looking at to custom develop something, as you guys, we all know, we all have budgets. So how do you go and get an ROI, and how do you go and pitch that you need the budget to do this, and then be able to come back to the executive team about this is the ROI we're bringing in, or to the board, and this is why it's really important. Why did we choose Nomad? Well, our sister company, River of Goods, have been working with Tori and his team for quite a long time. What we knew at that time was we knew that the scary word when it comes to these websites is customize, right? No one wants to customize too much, and everyone has customizations, and we're very different. So the reason we picked Nomad was the success of being able to find a partner that we knew would be flexible, malleable, whatever word you want to use, that is going to work within the parameters of what they already had built. When I say they, I mean I've only been at Terry Bear for about 5 years, and when I walked into the situation, they had a lot of custom softwares, custom mods in NAV 2013, and obviously we're now in NAV 2018 and is essential. But they had a lot of custom things we were doing for other customers, whether it was API or EDI or some other direct connection. So we had to we had to find the right partner that was going to help us connect these things and not disrupt our business. Here's some super unique challenges that we have, and I'm sure you guys have the same challenges. We don't always get to sell to our end customer. Okay, so on top of selling to our distributor who then sells to the funeral home, we have situations where we sell to a distributor who sells to a funeral provider who then sells to the actual funeral homes who then sells it to the end customer, whether it's online portal, their own website. So you got 3 or 4 layers before it gets to their customer. So our personalization becomes a challenge because our distributor will get an order from a funeral home. The funeral home, in theory, can't tell us the name of the deceased because they have to get it from their end customer, which may have been either in the funeral home at the time or some sort of online ordering process. So now we have to get that information back to us and get that product out in a timely manner because, again, it could be some sort of memorial or a funeral or burial going on. So we had serious challenges. We were printing out massive amount of pieces of paper. We had massive amount of departments between customer service, operations, warehouse, and our personalization team, continuously tight communication between people. And as we all know, people, we're all amazing, but it gets really challenging when you don't have a very documented and regimented process. How we were able to attain some of these goals, and we'll show this in some of the next slides where I have some screenshots for you, but what we were able to do is we said, listen, we needed a website, we need our distributors to be able to log on to the website, they got to be able to place an order. On top of that, on top of the order process, we want to be able to provide the customer to be able to proof the earn live time, real time, kind of like how Nike ID can do customized shoes with your names on them. We need that live time so that way we're eliminating layers of communication between a family submitting it to a funeral home who submits it to the distributor who then gets it back to us. So how do we go about this? And the website was the key. The first key was let's get our items all on the website and let's get them a portal that they can proof. So what you see here is obviously like a lot of softwares we all use, their connectors using the same thing. And not to get too technical, as you guys all probably already know, it's with web services or SOAP or OData. We're connecting directly to our ERP, which would show stock. And then the stock can get challenging. I'm sure people have questions on inventory. They're flexible enough to figure out how you want to do your inventory. Is it on hand? Is it on hand versus open orders? Is it a kitted item? Is it on hand? Is it part A plus part B equals part C? Show that on the website. They're able to be flexible with some of the customizations we already had in NAV and show what we want to show on the website. And then we have, like you all have, dynamic pricing. Do you have different price groups? Do you have different price tiers? Does every single person get their own pricing? You can see here we even have quantity breaks. In the middle of the page, you'll see someone that has 8, and their price goes down because they've ordered 8 of them. So it mirrors whatever you have in NAV. Those dates in NAV when you have starting date, end date, we're able to get the connector to read the data live time. You can put in, like in NAV, when you put in your price breaks, the connector then can read them. So whoever logs in is going to get their personalized experience with their personalized pricing, and you're no longer fearing that a customer's going to log in and get the wrong pricing. So that's kind of one of the big ways they helped us deal with many distributors, and they helped us with the volume, because again, we have 8 as an example here, but we have some 100 quantity price breaks. This is just what I was kind of talking about, that personalization. So on top of the fact that they're a connector company and they're an integrated company and they connect things, I wanted to really show this slide because it really depicts that on top of that they have their own in-house designers who can help work with you with your customizations. We have the ability to engrave and personalize this pet house live time. That wasn't Sniper9 software. It's a separate software we use where they're leveraging CSS and other Java things to make this application happen. And the ability for them to partner with our personalization, or we call it configuration partner, get into the room and kind of talk about how this is going to happen, how Nomad eCommerce had to put the rules in place. Each line has a different character count. Each item only gets to see certain fonts. They only get to see certain clip art. So those are the conversations we were able to have, and I think the next slide kind of shows it. With the back end of this is kind of the CMS part he was talking about. You load these rules in, and these rules then allow you to customize the experience for the end user however you see fit. The thing I really want to stress was this is a very stressful sticking point for us. It delayed their project 6 months. But the thing I want to highlight is that they're more than happy to partner with you, get inside your head. That's always the fear of us. We have to spend the money. We don't know the customer. We don't know the software partner is. How well are they going to support us once we sign the contract? This was a really big undertaking. We're talking about 2 different software companies, 1 different connector, lots of brainstorming, cloud hosting for where all these previews sit, and we're able to kind of sit through and kind of hammer out, this is a solution, this is the end game we need, and how do we go about it. So this was really, really big in our development of this site. And that's just a better zoomed in picture of, again, exactly Smokey the dog. Again, I'm going back to this, but the ability to have sliders, different types of art, different types of questions that get parsed through. You can see the artwork gets split between funeral and pet. Again, just a lot of that effort had to go into a lot of the labor between multiple companies, getting on the same page and trying to obtain the same goal. And then we have a really unique thing where we have to have the ability, because again, the dynamic ability of our distributors placing orders for different funeral homes is a lot of times they'll call in to the distributor and they'll tell them what they want. By having this draft list, and this draft list has been pretty amazing because it's per unique customer, they can then draft up all these previews is a better word, and then they can print this out and send it to their customer. So at the end of the day, you can get a digital copy of this in a PDF, send it to grandma, make sure she's good with it, or get it to someone else in your family, make sure they're happy with it. The customer here, our distributor, gets to keep it in a draft list. That way, when they're ready to buy it, they don't have to start over and keep remaking these previews. You see there's an image path. There's actually a hyperlink that we've been able to develop, and we're hosting it for the customer to go to. So again, when you're grieving and there's usually like one person trying to handle all the arrangements, this link gives them another way for us to connect with all of our customers and send off. This is what I kind of think we want to do with this piece of jewelry. What's everyone's feedback on it? For the distributors, they love it. Our customers, B2B, love it because then when they call in, they have a draft name. They have this huge draft list, and we have some customers that have hundreds and hundreds of drafts sitting open. They're able to go live time, edit it, put it back in their cart, and either resave it for another day or add it to their cart and check out. There's probably another screen that I want to talk about too. There's more customization, and our operational streamline was on top of the personalization. We have a legal disclaimer in spelling. So before our customers even get to their cart, we have a legal disclaimer pop out, and then we make them put their name in. And that's been a really big flow issue for us as well, because now we're not calling the distributor saying, is this final? Is this final? Can you fax me a signature saying this is really okay to engrave? And before we start putting our machinery on top of that brass, we get to have a sense of someone signed off on this. The bottom part is really interesting for us too, is because of this multifaceted customer that I've been talking about, the ability for us to then now offer funeral homes kind of a white label website, that memoryofalifetime.com. We're able to use their distributors' branding. So let's say that I'm called, West Coast distributor. We're able to use the website as a CMS for them and have their logo on it. And what ends up happening is their funeral homes, all 30 of them, will be able to log in to this clone, place their orders, not see pricing like Tori was talking about, and when the orders come in, when the orders come in to us, it actually goes into NAV with that parent company's ID. So then all their pricing populates. It's a way for us to reach those funeral homes that we haven't been able to reach before. It's also a way, think about this, we have 600, 800 items. It's also a way for those funeral homes with this kind of white label website to look at all of our products. In the past 30 years, we've only been relying on our distributors. So if our distributors only want to show 14 of what they perceive as our best items, that means those funeral homes only get to see 14 of Terrier's top items. Now with some of these white label websites, they get to see the entire 600 items, and they can then go back to the distributor and say, you know what, I've never seen this. We've had so many calls. I've never even knew you had this, and it's an item we've had for 10 years. It's because the distributor didn't make them available. So now that they see these items, we're seeing a huge uptick in orders because, again, if you don't see it, there's no way you can order it. So that's been one of the big wins when it comes down to the website continuation tool with the customized branding for our distributors. And I think we're at the last slide, so I'll let Tori take it back.
Thanks, Tony. Tony, I actually tried to screw you up. You did a pretty good job of not falling for the bait.
Like I said, we've been working together a long time. It feels like forever, but
we were just ham and egging it, weren't we? Thanks, Tony. I really appreciate it. Like I said earlier on, I didn't want to get too in-depth on any specific topic. I just wanted to make sure that kind of give an overview of specifics and high level of what Nomad does and why we invested in this product. And at this point, I'd like to open this up for some questions if there are any. And before I do that, we're very big on making sure that there is a trial site, there is a discovery process with every one of our clients, prospects before anything is started to make sure the project is successful and make sure that we are able to do what your objectives are. I mean, there's a lot of times where a client will come to us and we might not be the best fit for them. So I like to state that because please reach out to us, ask us the questions, have us put it up, see if we're a good fit for what your needs are and objectives. Okay. Any questions, Adam, that have come through at this point?
Sure. Yeah, so it looks like we have a couple. First question, is there a single price for the system or do you have a percentage based on sales? Can the data be stored local or must it be stored in the cloud?
Do you want me to take that one on, Tori?
Sure.
So what we do at Terrier, I'm sure Tori has lots of options, but I think that's a great question. So the data does not need to be stored in a cloud. You can store it locally if you like. I know Sniper, and I think the Nomad eCommerce, offers some cloud stuff, but we store it locally. Our prices, it's funny you said that, because the one thing we've just developed with Tori's team is percentages because of these tariffs. Our companies are affected by these tariffs. Some of our products do come from China. So what we're able to do on top of our regular pricing, and I hope I'm answering this correctly, on top of our regular pricing, they're able to put in a formula that allows us to only tax the items that are affected by the tariff on the invoicing level when they finish in the cart. So to answer that question, we do have dynamic pricing. We do have variables, the tariff being the newest one. So if we have an item that is from a region of China that is a tariffed item, the 10% that went into effect last November, what ends up happening is when you check out, you might have 14 items, but when it gets to that one line item, and let's say it's $10, there is a 10% tariff that's there. We do that because it's a psychology. They know that they're paying now $11 and it has nothing to do with us. That extra 10% came from the tariff that came down, and it's on that one item that's from that region. So we're able to attain a lot of that percentage pricing that way.
I'll add on to that. This first bit is the data. So what we've developed is more what I like to call more of a hybrid environment, to where the data is basically two places. And let's, for a moment here, let's just utilize the example of an on-prem Dynamics environment, to where our data is basically synchronized. And the reason why we do that is the site is completely independent of your environment. And your internet could be down, you could be restarting your server, whatever the reason is, we don't care. The site is still operational for your customers and your salespeople to place orders. And then once synchronization, we keep on basically pinging your environment to where Dynamics is, and it could be Azure, it could be in your environment and your data, wherever your data is stored in your office. And we'll be pinging it, and at that point say, oh, we have 5 to 10 orders. There looks like there's 10 to 20 changes on your end from when we last connected. Let's synchronize those changes, and that's all occurring in the background. The big part of that I like to explain is your customer has no idea that there's any sort of connectivity loss from your on-prem data to the website. That's the one thing I want to explain. In regards to 365, a little bit different, and that connection is occurring also in the background based upon changes, and we're connecting directly to it. We are on the compatible with the 365 NAV on-prem, which will be turning obviously into 365 GPAX. We are on the Microsoft App Store site for that as well. So I just want to explain that. On the pricing, I was a little confused if that question was around the pricing of the actual product of Nomad, or if it was based upon the pricing of how we handle pricing and on the inventory and NAV.
Yeah, I don't think they. No, yeah, it wasn't specified.
Okay, so based on the pricing of Nomad as the application is a SaaS, software as a service product, I will tell you from experience that in the old days, when I say legacy, it used to be where websites were priced based upon bandwidth and some other applications priced on a percentage of the revenue. We looked at it as, how do we price this product for a win-win in regards to the customer, and the touches in our mind is what's costing our client money. So we do it based upon a transaction. So we group transactions and price it based upon that, not a percentage of the actual sales amount of the order, but on a transaction, which in our mind is the cost of the touch that's saving you. So our subscription is literally on that, is based upon the order transactions that are occurring from an annual basis. We also, after the discovery, we'll do a brief setup fee and kind of get an idea of what that setup fee would be to manage the project, which is everything. And we're a la carte in regards to, you might come to us and say, I have an ad agency, I have a designer on staff, I want them to provide the look and feel of the site. Great, more than happy to do that. Where we're managing in regards to the installation and any modifications that are required for data connectivity from you and from your system to Nomad, and basically providing the project management to assist you in getting live. So that is part of the setup fee as well. So please contact us for that discovery, and then we can give an idea of what that pricing looks like for you.
So Tori, someone's asking if the solution requires any customizations in NAV or code units.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have Tony answer that specifically in his instance, and then I'll explain to you from a broad view of how we handle that. Tony, you want to start?
Sure. We didn't have to do any special coding per se. We just needed to point which fields were for what and map them. And that can be done a couple different ways, whether you have someone on staff that can share all the SQL tables and the numerical tables, or literally we've had situations where we just say this is where it's at in our ERP, and this is where we want it to be mapped over into the website, and they're able to do it that way as well. So there is no customization you need to do in NAV to get this to work, but they definitely can connect and map it either way.
Thanks, Tony. So to extend upon that, I will tell you from 15, 17 years working in e-commerce and web connectivity to ERPs, even outside of Dynamics, that every person needs a difference in regards to how things are handled. They could be on the exact same version of an ERP, and their business processes are going to be a little different in regards to how that site should interact with that ERP, in this case Dynamics. So when we developed the application, that of course was our first thing we went to the drawing board on. How can we handle that efficiently? And in regards to the mappings and the connections, which is common for us to get into and say, I need to filter this data. Before this data gets into Dynamics, I need to put it specifically, if it's this customer, put it into Dynamics this way differently. So those are all query driven, and those are what we would call more of the modifications. Lack of better words, what we stated earlier, the customizations. And in regards to the front end system, all the modifications then are done on the query side in regards to the connection. And therefore, it bypasses a lot of the modifications that are needed on the storefront side. Most of the modifications on the storefront side are done from a user interface perspective, UI and design level, without having to modify the source code on our side. Hopefully that answers that question.
Let's see if we have any more questions that come through. Just give people another minute or so to collect their thoughts. Oh, actually, it looks like we do have another one that just came in. So someone's asking, what information would my company need to provide you so we can set up a test/trial site with you? How long does that setup typically take?
That's a great question. So what we like to do is set up more of a quick, which I like to call more of a demonstration and discovery. So what that is I like to ask, our team likes to ask, what are your objectives with the site? What are you, a little more about what you're selling, who you're catering to, who's going to be logging into the site. Once we get to know that, I would state, give me 5 products, mock products. We'll put up a trial site, we'll put up those mock products, understand the exact data that you're needing besides the dynamic data, like I referred to as the marketing data earlier, and showing that on a page. At that point, you would literally be able to, the site won't be designed specifically the way you want, but you'd be able to see those 5 products on the site, click through them, place an order. Okay, so that's kind of that process usually presents, in my mind, a huge amount of questions that are raised, and I like to get those questions raised right away as opposed to in the project. So then a lot of things get discovered that might have been discovered in the project, which is not the best time to discover them. Any other, Adam?
Let's see if we have a couple that come in. We'll just give people another minute or so to collect their thoughts.
While they're doing that, again, you can go to the Nomad e-commerce site. You're going to see a customer section to be able to click through some sites of ours to see a broad variety, more than I've showed today, of different things, different industries and different sites that we've done. But please email us. You can fill out the form, or you can just email us from the website. or reach out to us, please, anyway. We'd be more than happy to set up a one-on-one demo on that discovery that I just mentioned.
Here's a good
yeah, if we're waiting for questions,
that,
I just wanted to add one thing I forgot to mention, which was the biggest thing about the proofing part for us was the streamlining and have it all digitized and not having to rely on manual entry. So when we're looking at ROI, those are the kind of things that I usually tell people when it comes to Nomad, how that return on investment there, because on top of it being our website connector, we house a lot of our information in there. So that's where that content management piece is a big player in the game. We have somewhere for the personalization team to go log into if they're looking at something for verification purposes and not opening up NAV 2018 or NAV Business Central.
Here's a good question that just came in. If my server is offline, will my website still be able to take orders?
That's a great one. I want to answer that one. I love that. So I'm not going to name names on my team, but we had an overzealous networking guy one day, and he took down our firewall, and I was freaking out because I was like, great, that's awesome. It's been 6 hours in the middle of the night. It stays in queue. So they have a scheduler that runs. We got in that morning. We realized we had an issue. We got the firewall working. We got our services back online. And then we had a flood of whatever it was that day. 104 orders came in all at the same time. So it will sit in Nomad eCommerce's queue. So when your server comes back on, it'll write into SQL, and all of our orders were in place the minute that we had our server back online. It's usually the sync was running every 5 to 10 minutes. So I think it was 15 minutes afterwards. We saw all the orders from overnight.
That's a great example of how and why we developed it that way. Just to extend upon that, as I said a little bit earlier, is we're using. I will tell you in the day that triggers was, and I'm going to get technical here for a minute, but I think this is important. SQL triggers were a very only way to really know what data has changed. One of the biggest things we have to know is we're independent and from a connectivity perspective, and you don't think of it as maybe a bad analogy, but I like it as Dropbox, right? I put a document in and it synchronizes over those changes, and everybody else who I've shared that document can see it on Dropbox. And is the triggers were a way, really only way of doing that, a good way of doing that. We now utilize with Microsoft developing change tracking. It's phenomenal. So we have the ability to quickly, with Microsoft technology, see what data has changed, when it's changed, timestamps, to know that retention period too is up to a day, or we can set it more than a day. So connectivity and the site's up, connectivity could be out for a day, and we're going to know exactly all the data that's changed in your back office and synchronize it and make sure everything is synchronized properly. So just wanted to extend upon that.
And here's another question. How long does a typical Nomad e-commerce web store take to build?
Great question, and I always like to answer that question. It's very similar to, I want to build a house, and not knowing the details of the house, how long is that house going to take me to build? And I say that not to bypass the question and to be political, but it is a very broad answer. We have clients that will call us and say, I've got literally 30,000 items and parts that I need to get up online and sell, and I don't really have much of the marketing data available in regards to showing it to my customers of how they would be able to find it, like I talked earlier in the self-service. Well, there is a tremendous amount of content that needs to be provided from that customer to be able to push it up. Now, if somebody calls us and says, I want, I have all this content, I have all this data, I'm ready to go, and we put it up, we've had sites up in 4 to 6 weeks. But we've also had some sites that go tremendously long because of the content's not available, and the business rules were not thought through in regards to shipping estimates and how they want to handle things. So it does, to be quite honest, it varies. And that's the big part of the discovery is asking those right questions and getting to the bottom of and understanding that.
I want to just throw my hat in the ring here. I'm sure Tori's going to hate my answer, but the people need an answer, Tori. All joking aside, I asked Michael and the team over at Nomad eCommerce that we needed one of our sites to be converted that wasn't just Memory of a Lifetime, but it's a sister site we had. The difference was obviously we had all the data and content available. So I had already gone through the process of getting everything finalized, but I needed another site set up, and it was for one of our sister entities, and I needed it connected to NAV the way we have it connected to NAV now. We were able to obtain that in less than 3 months, and again, the biggest key to that, to Tori's point, was we already had all the content, short description, long description, keywords, tag words, SEO tag words, pricing. We had that all kind of in play. So for a live real example, it took us 2 weeks to have a conversation about it, 2 weeks to test the connectors, a month for our internal team to go through all the data to make sure it looked good, and another about a month for we had like some beta testers that would use it, and we went 3 months after that, and we were ready to go. And so it varies, and Tori's answer is more correct than mine, but I wanted to give you guys a live, real example and not hypotheticals. That's what we did in 3 months.
Thanks,
with the second site.
Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions coming in, so why don't we end there if that's okay. Tori, Tony, thanks so much for a great presentation. That was awesome, and I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of their day to attend. So thanks so
Adam.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye, everyone.